Okay, Chris Peaks here today with Dale Jackson, a well-known celebrity here in Alabama, media personality, here to give me an interview today about an incident that happened with Attorney General Troy King a few years ago when he had to go into a grand jury investigation concerning voter fraud. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was the gist of it. Troy King, I'll just be as blunt as I can about this. Troy King got upset with me because I asked him a question that everyone else was hinting around about,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't want to answer it. And when he didn't answer it, it embarrassed him. And I think that was pretty clear and understandable that it did embarrass him. But when I asked him the question, it was solely about doing away with the rumor because the rumor was making its way into like the Birmingham News editorials and stuff like that. They were hinting around at different things without actually saying it. So I was like, let's just do away with the rumor because I didn't buy it, still don't to this day, and B, it was stupid, and he was being maligned because they didn't like his policies. It had nothing to do with anything that they actually believed. But there was some sex toy legislation or rulings that they were
Yeah.
unhappy with, and they had been mailing him inflatable pigs and all sorts of other stupid things, and I thought that was really dumb. And so I had gotten involved in blowing up some, I would say, wannabe pedophiles. I did a bit on the radio called Dale Jackson to Catch a Predator. And Troy King and I talked a little bit about that because Troy King had said, that, hey, Facebook had put out this stuff where they said, oh, no, we're safer now because we're taking pedophiles and we're combining the database and kicking those people off. And I'm like, well, and my whole point was, and I talked to him about this, I said, I could just create a name and go on there and do whatever I want. So it doesn't
Right.
really matter what you're doing. And in fact, I could become a 14-year-old girl tomorrow and people would try to talk to me. And I said, I'll do it
Mm-hmm.
and I'll show you. So I went and I did it and I showed him. Busted a couple people here and there. There's obviously was nothing against the law at the time. But Troy King and some others in the area, including one of the local fire chiefs, contacted me because I gave a little bit of information about who I had talked to, and one of them was a volunteer firefighter. Well, that individual reached out to me and said, "Who was it?" And I was like, "I'm not telling you anything. I'm not going to put this out here, but I'll give you as much information as I feel like giving you." And they apparently tracked this guy down and like basically ran him out of the volunteer fire department and said, we know what you've been doing. It's not illegal, but you're busted and go find something else to do because we don't want you anywhere around us. And then Troy King came back on and we talked about that. And at the end of the interview, I asked him, I said, look, there's a big rumor going around. I don't believe it, but let's just get it out here and have that question. And the question was basically, did your wife catch you in bed with another man? And like I said, I didn't believe it. I thought it was BS. I thought the people were smearing him. His answer he gave was terrible. I do a lot of things, and one of those things is I don't discuss rumors, which is, again, really, really stupid. It's a stupid thing to say. If you just tell the truth and say no, or tell the truth and say yes, which I was expecting a no, of course not. So when he said, there have a lot of things to do, and one of those things is not discuss rumors, I said, that's odd. I said, why don't you just answer the question? And then he said it again. As all that happens, so we go sideways. A couple months pass. I find myself in a little
Hey,
hot
you was
water
just
with a
giving him a
joke.
chance to. I'm
I'm
sorry, I didn't
sorry.
mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You was giving him a chance to clear
Correct.
his name.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, that was my intention because I didn't buy what they were saying. Let's just put it that way. I didn't believe that was all true. There were a lot of hints about what it was, like Troy King and the prom king from Troy and all this other stuff. That was like sort of the implication that was going on. And so he gave a terrible answer. A couple months down the line, I made a joke on election day. Republicans vote on one day, Democrats vote on the next. Clearly a joke. The Democrats in North Alabama pretended that it was being handed out at the polls and all this other stuff. It's a lie. None of that was true. And when I saw that the Secretary of State, Beth Chapman, I believe it was at the time, was questioning what was going on, I went in there and said, well, I did that. That was a joke I made. And I said, nobody's handing out any flyers. I literally told this joke on the radio, and I posted a little joke press release on my website about it. Ha 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 ha. Very funny. So I get suspended from a week from my job because of that, which is probably the right thing to do. And then a couple weeks after that, someone from Troy King's office shows up at my house. He comes to my house. He starts questioning me about the election. And I say, come on. There is no criminality here. We all know that this is a stupid thing. You're here because me and Troy King got sideways over this other stupid thing. Oh, no. He assured me that wasn't the case. And then I laid out to him the case. And I said, okay, well, here it is. Here's the audio. I did it. Here's the press release I wrote. I did it. Here's the video, or here's the audio of the show of that day. I did it. I did everything that you're asking me if I did, and not a single bit of it is illegal. You know it. I know. He's like, I know. Then the guy leaves his gun in my apartment. Okay, so the cop leaves his gun in my apartment. I mean, he's in there playing with my dog and all this other stuff, and he leaves his gun in my apartment. All that stuff. So I think nothing of it. I've already been suspended a long time ago. I have no desire to make this an issue or anything like this. I'm not stupid. I understand when someone's trying to scare me, and I gave all the information I had to do, which is probably stupid. I should have probably said I'm not participating in any of this, but I did do it. I mean, there's no question. It was a joke. Everyone knows it was a joke. Anybody that pretends that event was criminal or malicious or anything like that is full of crap. Anyone who says that. Nobody truly believes that. Not Troy King, not Laura Hall, who was running for office at the time, not the members of the Alabama media that wrote stories about it but never followed up on it. None of them. No one believes that. It is a lie to pretend that they do. They are scumbags. They are trash. They are terrible people. Troy King, same thing. He attempted to destroy my life because I embarrassed him, not because he thought that I had done something illegal. So all of this continues, and I get a notice to appear before a grand jury. So I do. I appear before the grand jury, and I walk into the grand jury, and I sit down with the investigator and the prosecutor in the case with my attorney, and I sit down across the table, and they ask me if I'd like to make a deal. They throw out the 4 charges they're considering charging me with. It is voter fraud, misappropriation of the state seal, voter intimidation, and forgery or some other thing. So 2 felonies, 2 misdemeanors, 33 years in jail. Which one of these would you like to plead to? Well, I was like, damn, this seems like a sweet deal. I plead. They leave me alone. Story's over. No big deal. Great. My lawyer says, hold on one second. They leave the room. He says,
Brooks, right?
I'm sorry?
Mo Brooks was your lawyer?
Correct. Mo Brooks was my lawyer. He was a county commissioner at the time. He was a friend of mine. It still is. And he's a great human being. The guy was worried about me, and he took care of me. The guy ended up officiating my wedding. I mean, this is a good human being. I'm friends with his kids. He has been a great human being. And anyone who says otherwise is full of shit. So the simple fact of the matter is, we sit down and we say, we're not taking, he says, look, if you plead to anything, they're going to make a big deal about this, and they're going to pretend they got something here, and then they're going to try to fire you. They're going to try to get you fired. That's what they're going to try to do. And I said, okay, well, I'm not going to plead to that, because if I'm going to get fired, might as well go down swinging. So I said, okay, fine. We'll go. We'll roll the dice. Come back in. The prosecutor says, what crimes would you like to plead to? We told him none. And he's like, what? He said, you don't have to listen to him. You can do whatever you want. You're in charge here. And I said, no, I'm going to listen to my attorney. I'm going to do what he says. So I pled to none. He leaves the room, and the investigator basically looks at me and Mo and says, holy cow. Not in those words. They ain't got nothing, and they know it. They absolutely know it. They're trying to scare you. Like, that's essentially what the guy said to me. It's not a direct quote, but that's the gist. And I go into the grand jury room, and they tank the case instantly. I sit there. They start asking me questions. First question is, are you sorry? Which, of course, is not a legal question. That's them trying to get the people in that room to feel sorry for me, because you could have indicted me if you wanted to. You very easily could have indicted me, but they didn't, because they knew they had nothing. It was an intimidation technique. That's all it was. And they had played their hand too far. What they should have done is got to that point and said, we're dropping all of this, go home. That would have been the end of it. And they would have said, we're dropping all of this. Keep your nose clean, go home. That's what they should have done. But they tried to push it a step further. And I go in there, and then the people in the grand jury are like, we're trying to make people feel stupid. Again, these are not legal questions, obviously. And the only question the prosecutor asked me is if I was sorry. That was it. That was it. The only question. And
What
then
was
they
the
let the grand jury ask some questions, and one of them said, "Hey, I was listening that morning. It was pretty funny." I knew at this point I was good. So all of that goes down. They say, "Okay, it'll be like 6 weeks, and we'll let you know what goes on." By the time I was back home, I had already got a phone call saying that they had no billed the whole thing, and it was over. Well, at that point, I was free and clear. So now I can tell the whole story and let everyone know exactly what Troy King was trying to do. Now, in the interceding time, there was back and forth between Mo Brooks and the Attorney General's office saying, "Look, you know what this is about. We know what this is about. Like, if you want to go forward with this, go right ahead. But you're upset that you were asked a question you didn't like, and now you're trying to punish the person who did it to you. That's what you're trying to do, and that's fine. But we will talk about this in court." So they tanked the case because he didn't really want that. He tried to bully and intimidate, and he lost. That's what happened in that situation. Period. What
So
else?
what'd you tell the prosecutor when he asked you if you were sorry?
Sure. I'm sorry I'm here right now. I'm sorry I'm wasting everybody's time. I'm sorry people had to pretend that they believed that this was a serious thing, but not a single person was like, "Oh, I guess I'll vote on Wednesday." That's just idiotic. There was not a coin flip at the courthouse. There is no Office of Electoral Elections ran by Marion S. Barber, who at that time was the running back for the Cowboys. I'm a Cowboys fan, so I use that name. The whole thing was a joke. It was clearly a joke. It was written as a joke. It was delivered as a joke. Everyone knew it. Troy King was upset. He was embarrassed, and he was looking for payback. And he failed.
Okay, so let me ask you a couple questions. Hey, when we get through with the interview at the end of it, there's a few things I want to tell you. It's nothing major, but so you said the investigator.
Now, what are you talking about?
No. I was just going to tell you like the podcast or what I did or what I was doing here. It's nothing to do with the interview like
okay,
that.
Whatever. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So the investigator, why did he have his gun out?
He's a cop. I mean, he's an investigator.
He took his gun out and he's just brandishing it.
I think it was on his belt and it popped off when he sat down.
Okay. All right. I can understand that. All right. So I'm pretty good friends with
I only tell that part of the story because it's funny. I mean, it's not because there's anything wrong or anything like that. He called me. I said, "Yeah, it's here. Come get it."
So I'm good friends with Troy King.
I'm sorry.
And well, when I first read the story, I was like, this just doesn't sound like him. So when I asked you last night about, him going after you, wouldn't it made more sense for him to go after the people who launched the story against him?
It would have made more sense for him to just tell the truth. That's what would have made more sense. I mean, there's zero reason for him to do what he did otherwise, and he knows it. I'm sorry, your friend's lying to you. That's very sad. Sorry to hear. But the simple fact of the matter is, I don't know anything about who was spreading those rumors, except for the fact that they were upset with him politically because he was doing things they didn't like. Same reason they do everything. The people don't like you, try to smear you because they can't beat you. And Troy King was in a pretty powerful position at that point. Now he became something he wasn't at that particular point in time later on, where he started siding with gamblers and all these other things. And we know how that went later on in life, where he got in business with gamblers and all these other things and stuff like that. But at this particular point in time, I don't think any of that was even happening. I think there was the disagreement between Riley and him on the task force and things like this. And my position was, if it's illegal, shut it down. And if the attorney general's not going to do it, and the governor has the authority, he should. And so they had a legal fight about that, and that was going on right in the middle of this. But to suggest that this was happening because Troy King is a defender of the sanctity of the vote and people not voting on Wednesday is so incredibly stupid. And there's a reason that happens. If that was the case, Troy King would have brought that up the day after it happened. He would not have tried to do it clandestinely to intimidate. And that's what it was. It was an intimidation technique, and he bluffed. And as you've seen with his other gambling plays, he bluffed and then he crapped out. He didn't have what he needed to cover his bet. So, oh well.
Had you and Troy King had any problems prior to this?
None. And he tried to come up to me at some event one day. I said, "Get away from me. I haven't desired to talk to you. You tried to put me in jail over a joke." said, "You're pathetic," and I walked away.
Did he show up at the grand jury investigation
No,
or
of
the grand
course
jury?
not. Of course not. He wasn't going to drive all the way to Limestone County in order to do this, because in his mind, they thought they were going to drop it instantly, and they thought it'd just be done, and that would be the whole thing. And I would give them what they wanted, which was a stupid plea, and that they would be able to say, "Look what we did. We stopped this voter fraud by this talk show host," and then they'd get me fired. There's no other reason to do what they did. There's zero reason. There's zero other reason. And if that wasn't it, boy, there's been a lot of time that's passed for Troy King to make that argument. I'm sorry he's talking to you about it, because I don't know why it makes any sense at all.
Well, no, in his defense, he did not talk to me about this.
No, you talked to him, but what he should have said is, "My bad. I really don't want to revisit this," because it's not a good moment for him. It's just not.
His response
not only did he lose, not only did he lose in what he was trying to do, but now he's embarrassed again. If this even makes it out into the public, because if you're his friend, why would you put this out?
Well, I mean, I'm his friend. He told me his side of the story. I thought the best thing to do was to hear your side of the story.
Yeah, that's fine. There is only one side of the story. I can't imagine he told you a story any different than what I've told you. Because I'll tell you this: I heard you asked me the other day. You said something about some guy named Tim Witt or something. I have no idea who that is. I have no idea who any of these people are. I have no clue. That had nothing to do with any of that. I asked him that question as an attempt to give him a chance to clear his name against people who were smearing him. And he got all hurt about it and embarrassed himself over it. Not my problem. That's his problem.
Troy's response to me was he didn't remember any of it taking place that way.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate, because he's a fucking liar. So there you go.
Well, I mean, me and Troy will still be friends after this, and
that's fine. Hey, if you want to be friends with a liar, you go right ahead and be friends with a liar. That's completely fine. But I'm telling you this right now. Listen to me.
Okay.
If you come in and try to destroy somebody's life, you remember that. Okay? You remember that. So that's just the way it is. And maybe Troy King tried to destroy so many people's lives that he doesn't remember it. But I've been openly talking about this at every opportunity. And I appreciate you wanting to talk about it, because not another person in the state in any form of media has ever asked me about this. They wrote the story about the first day about how Dale Jackson had committed voter fraud and might go to jail, and how the Department of Justice might be looking at it, which was completely a lie. And there was nothing of that. They covered Mike Hubbard calling me an idiot. They covered Laura Hall complaining about how her loss was tainted, and all this other stuff. They did all that, but they never did any follow through, because it was stupid and everybody knew it. And then Troy King thought that was an opportunity to extract some revenge. There's no other way to tell the story.
So nobody else reported on this at all after it was over with?
No, I'm the only. I have platforms, and I gladly talk about it. It's a great moment.
But I'm the only.
The greatest thing that ever happened. This is the greatest thing that ever happened. The Attorney General of the state of Alabama tried to put me in jail, and I beat him. Hell yeah, I'm going to talk about that at every opportunity. But AL.com, come on. Any of the TV stations that covered it, come on. Not a single entity touched it. This story was written in like the Houston Chronicle, the Washington Post. All these different places covered this story, and not a single one of them followed up on the story. Not a single. Hey, what happened with that story we wrote about the guy who tried to steal an election in Alabama? Correction, the guy who got away with stealing an election in Alabama. What happened in that story? Oh, nothing? Wow, don't we feel stupid?
Wow, because, I was just scrolling the web one night and just looking at different stuff, and I just seen this article, and I started reading it, and I thought, I don't ever remember hearing anything about this. I don't remember anything about this, and I couldn't find any follow-up stories after it was over with. And
there's no such thing as a follow-up story. The only other thing that was written about this story is something I wrote for Yellow Hammer News a few years ago that I use on a regular basis. I constantly do it. It's got a funny image on it and everything. There's a picture of me in a jail cell and Troy King standing outside of it, and it's a photoshopped image, and I love that photo because it's awesome. And so that's what happened. That's the end of the story. I mean, really, that is the total end of the story. Troy King never said, "Oh, my bad. or I shouldn't have done that, or anything like that. Not that I expect him to. I mean, if you do this stuff, of course you're not going to go back and think you've done anything wrong or anything like that. And I'm not suggesting he should. My suggestion on all of this is solely this. This story is bullshit. This story has always been bullshit. And Troy King knew it was bullshit from the very beginning. And he could have very easily not did what he did. But instead, he did what he did because he was completely happy to try to use his power to intimidate someone that he thought had done him wrong. Whoops.
And you said he came up and tried to talk to you at an event later?
Yeah, we were just we I mean, he didn't come and try to talk to me about this or anything, but he tried to like shake my hand and talk to me. I was like, no.
Okay, and so I mean, I appreciate you saying that, media. I'll just go and say what I was going to say at the end anyway. I got into this a few years ago. I got spinal stenosis, couldn't work. I have supposed to have 3 surgeries, and I always thought this stuff was cool. So I got to interviewing people, and don't take this the wrong way, but some of the big journalists I've tried to get to talk to me, and now ignored me, but I was trying to bait you to get you to give me the interview, so I'm glad you have
what
some
is the
fire.
bait? What is the bait? I have no problem talking about this. I love talking about it.
But you see, the big guys, really, the main players or the big journalists, like Maurice Fogel called me a wannabe political hack. Well, sure I am. They don't want to talk to me or give me any or interviews or that right there. So I like, okay, let me see if I can get this guy to talk to me. And sure, I mean, you started responding back to me, and I was like, okay, I've got some respect.
I will tell this story at any time, anywhere, to any person, because it is a perfect example of what people in government can do if they want to. This was an attempt to crush a member of the press, and people in the press didn't even care. They didn't even care. I mean, just imagine if Steve Marshall sent police to Carol Robinson's house, or sent police to I don't know, Greg Screw's house on Channel 19 in Huntsville. Imagine that happened. They'd be irate. You saw it happen at a police station, or excuse me, a newspaper in like Kansas or something this week. People freaked out about that.
Mm-hmm.
But here, this happened, and I wasn't quiet about it. They knew what was going on. They all knew what was going on. And
why do you think the state news media just totally ignored it or didn't want to say?
Because they're losers. I mean, what do you? These guys are people who are the human embodiment of a C+ average in journalism school. They hate their lives. They hate their jobs. They hate their families. They hate their coworkers. They hate where they live. They hate where they work. They hate everything about their lives. Read their words.
Oh, I do.
The most miserable human beings that have ever existed in their entire lives. And it eats them alive that they think that they're the power brokers. They aren't the power brokers in this state. They're just not. They are an annoyance. And if I was a politician, I wouldn't even talk to those guys. There'd be zero reason to even do that. I can reach more people by going on Twitter or a podcast, not yours, because 7 people are going to see this, but other podcasts.
What do you actually think? I mean, I've got upwards, some got 1,000, 2,000 views.
Okay,
so
whatever. But they can what they're doing literally does not matter. It is a dying medium. They hate feedback. They hate anyone that pushes back and disagrees with them, and they will not even engage them. I don't believe in that. The worst thing that ever happened to the media in their eyes is comment sections on websites and emails, because what never has to happen again, or what had before, what you had to do was you had to actually like write a letter and send it off, and then they had to open it, and someone had to see. All this stuff had to happen. Now what happens is they do their garbage, and people immediately say to them, "Hey, you suck," and they tell them that directly, and there's no avoiding it because they're addicted to Twitter. I'll be the first to tell you. You see all the negativity and stuff, and they won't respond. If you're negative to them, they will not respond, because what they want is constant positive feedback, and they hate the idea that there are people who are equal to them or better than them. I mean, there is not a single thought in my mind that there's not a journalist in this state, a legitimate journalist. I call myself Alabama's most trusted journalist as an absolute joke, but I can tell you this right now. I would take any employed journalist in this state and match W-2s with them and see who makes more money. Any one of them. Not a single. And I'll make this challenge right now for the 9 people that are going to see this. If you are an employed journalist in this state, I will take my W-2 against your W-2, and whoever's is bigger gets a month of the other's pay. Gladly in a heartbeat.
I'm so glad that you pointed that out to me the other night, because when I first read that, most trusted journalist, I thought, God, how arrogant could this SOB be to bestow that title on himself?
Journalist, it's a joke.
If I'm glad you pointed that out, because it's better to look foolish and remain silent than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. Because I really thought that you nailed that about the media in this state, because it is a complete joke. They have an agenda, and anytime I push back on Dylan Smith, April Marie Fogel, no comments. And I would troll them on Twitter. Their articles point out, and the one thing that just my pet
they don't
peeve
want to
is,
fight, and those 2 people I know, and you're choosing 2 of the more, I would argue, conservative members of the media. I would say openly. Dylan Smith works for Dale Strong right now. Abraham Ray Fogel ran a website and did a conservative talk radio show. Those two guys,
Dylan.
Huh?
I actually like Dylan.
No, I'm just saying, but you're choosing the wrong people. Those individuals are commentators. I'm a commentator. I'm not actually a journalist. Alabama's most trusted. The only reason I'm Alabama's most trusted journalist is because you can't name another one that anyone trusts. It's by process of elimination. I'm the only one, so I can say that kind of stuff. And I don't even believe I'm a journalist. I think that's an insult of a term, to be honest. Because what kind of loser goes to school for 4 years to make less than $8 an hour? That's pathetic. So
my name is Jeffrey Poor. I don't like.
Jeff thinks he's a journalist too, and I love Jeff Poor. Me and Jeff Poor are friends. I gave Jeff Poor his first radio job. I don't even agree that Jeff Poor is a journalist. I think Jeff Poor is a commentator, just like me. But he views himself as a journalist as well. And a lot of people would say that he is Alabama's most trusted journalist. They would say that because the guy does break stories and all that, but he's also a commentator. So, but the Alabama's most trusted journalist thing is an absolute joke. It is a complete joke. And it is because, and I always say this when people get mad about it. So, okay, well, then tell me another one. Tell me another one you trust. Just give me one.
Brandon Mosley.
Okay. All you're doing there is telling on yourself, but that's fine.
No, well, now, help educate me, because I don't know these guys like you do.
No, I don't know. I don't know Brandon Mosley, but again,
I think he's one of the guys. All right, let me tell you. When I first wanted to do this and thought, man, I'd love to interview these guys and do this little podcast. He's the only guy that I got in touch with that helped me and said, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. People like Jeffrey Poor, Dylan Smith. We're friends on Facebook. They wouldn't even respond to a message.
Yeah, they're busy. Look, I have a problem with Brandon Mosley. He does fine work. But again, Alabama's most trusted journalist is me. I don't trust anybody else. And the fact is, these guys who are doing this job, it's hard. It's a hard job. But you don't have to make it look so hard. And these guys, I'm not talking about those, but the people that actually hold themselves up as, I'm a journalist, I'm this, I'm that, those guys are usually the problem. They're the problem. John Archibald would consider himself a journalist. Kyle Whitmire, Josh Moon, these guys would all consider, Tim Lockett, they would all consider themselves to be Brian Lyman. They're all activists. Every single one of those guys are activists. The only difference between what I do and what they do is I admit it. And what they do is they're trying to cloak it behind this veneer of hoidiness that is just garbage. And they know it. They absolutely know it.
And one of my pet peeves is when these guys, and I know who's writing because I can tell, is they put staff writer and they don't have enough guts to put their own name behind it.
I think everyone does that. I think it's on different websites. You see that. I'm sure Yellowhammer's done that, and I work for them. So, that is what it is. I don't see any problem with that. Look, you know what you're dealing with, okay? If you think anything is 100% pure or clear or whatever, I don't know what to tell you. That's naivete on your side.
No, I can do that. Because I can read 2 different articles on a story, and I get 2 different slants. It depends on which angle you're pushing it from.
Sure, exactly.
I mean, and who's writing it? Dale, I think that's all the questions I've got for you, man. I appreciate you giving me the chance, opportunity
Sure.
to interview you. It was it's a lot of fun, man. I hope you didn't.
I'm sorry it didn't go the way you wanted.
No, I didn't have an agenda of
Bull
how.
crap. You
No,
had
I
the
wanted
agenda to come in here and white knight for Troy King, and you can't.
all I could do
That was the agenda.
No. Hold on. What I wanted to do is I asked you to come in here to interview you about it. Now I could not white knight Troy King because Troy King only told me that he did not remember how that happened.
Yeah,
Now
lying.
you told me your story. I can't go back and argue this happened when I don't know what General King
I lived
out
it.
there.
I know exactly what happened.
But no, I was not trying to white knight Troy King. I was trying to get your side of the story because it sounded like a tale. I'm not calling you a liar at all. I appreciate you coming in and being blunt with me.
How would you call me a liar? I went on the record and told you everything that happened. Sue me, Troy King. Sue me.
I said I was not calling you a liar.
Yeah.
I mean, we called each other liars last night, but again, I was trying to poke the bear. I was going to see how far I could get you. I mean, I was not.
Like I said, I'm sorry it didn't go the way you wanted.
No, I'm not. It didn't. It did not go the way I wanted. I wanted to get your side of the story. I wanted to get an interview with you. Did you think I was coming on here to try to have some kind of hostile showdown?
I got right on my side. I don't give a shit.
I didn't care if it was going to be a hostile
I got right. All I need to know is what actually happened and what the truth is. I don't worry about anything else. That's why I don't care. I'll tell you everything that happened.
You did.
They scared the hell out of me. They attempted to scare the hell out of me. I would have taken a deal had it not been for Mo Brooks. And they would have
I probably would have taken a deal like that too, because you don't know what a jury's going to do.
Correct.
In a situation. I mean, you could have walked in there and had 12 people that didn't like you, and you're going to prison.
If they wanted an indictment, they could have got it. They didn't want an indictment. That pisses me off even more. Really, the story here is an abuse of the justice system. That's the real story. He abused the justice system and taxpayer dollars because he was upset about something. That's it. That's the true story. And he doesn't even remember it because it's just a weapon. It was just a weapon. So what else did he do? Was it only me that he did that to? I doubt it.
Well, with this, when that came out, I mean, he told me the story and with his family and everything. I mean, why do you think that he had so much anger towards you when you asked him that?
Because I asked the question directly while everyone else was just hinting around about it and nobody's were saying stuff online. And I put a name to it, which put credibility behind it. I asked the question directly.
How did you ask
it? I'm sorry?
What was the question that you actually asked?
I asked him if he had get caught with if he had got caught with another dude. I asked the question directly, and nobody else would. They would just hint around about it and suggest they knew something they knew nothing about. So I asked the question directly to give him a chance to say enough of this. And instead of taking that opportunity, he made a fool of himself and he got embarrassed. And people took that audio and shared it. Why wouldn't they? If you're trying to malign the guy, and one of the ways you're doing it is by suggesting that the reason he's being a prude about sex toys and whatever is because he's secretly gay, why not take him saying, I don't discuss rumors, instead of saying, no, that's not true? Why wouldn't you use that?
The sex toy thing, I questioned him about that in one of our interviews. He told me that was something that was started under Bill Pryor. And when it was started, he could not drop the case. And he went and tried to go, the legislature passed those laws, and he had no choice but to follow through with it.
There are attorney generals all over the state that don't defend cases. The Attorney General of the United States of America has made it very clear, I'm not going to defend cases I don't want to defend. They drop cases all the time. I hate to tell you this, your friend's a liar.
Well, that's not going to change my opinion of Troy King. He's always been.
That's a reflection on you.
Well, how's that a reflection on me? I mean, I'm sure you've got friends.
No, excuse me. I don't have friends that lie directly to my face. And then I say, well, that's not going to change my opinion. It will absolutely change my opinion of someone if they lie directly to my face. I don't know why
Sorry,
you
lost. Sorry, I had a phone call for a minute. Yeah, I can take what's the word for exemption or some of that.
Exception.
Exception. Thank you. No, I'm an honest person, Dale.
I'd
I'm
say
not
you weren't.
someone.
I never suggested you weren't an honest person.
If you said if it's a reflection on me,
It is a reflection on you. If somebody tells you something that's not true, and you're told it's not true, and it's obvious it's not true, and you say, well, that's not going to change my reflection of my thought of him, well, then that's a reflection on you.
I should quit being friends with him.
I don't care what you do. I'm just saying I would not go around saying, well, that guy lied, so that's not going to change my thoughts. It's absolutely going to change my thoughts on someone that lies directly to me.
How Troy King has treated me over the years in our friendship, I'm not going to throw that out because of this.
But that's fine. That's transactional. If your relationships are transactional, that's fine. But don't get upset that it reflects poorly on you.
I'm not upset, but you're attacking my integrity.
I am. I absolutely am. I am attacking your integrity.
So then you're calling me a liar. Then
why did I call you a liar? I said that.
If you say
the difference is you are showing that you're willing to put aside things when people lie to you because they're your friends. That's an integrity issue. It's not necessarily that you're a liar. I'm not saying you're going to lie for the guy, but you're going to say, hey, everyone's good, even the guy who murdered 7 people because he's my son.
That is a horrible comparison. I'm
just saying, well, you're saying if somebody did something like that and they're like, well, it's not going to change my opinion of them. Okay, robbed a bank, robbed a liquor store, whatever. Every action people take.
I should quit being friends with Troy King. That's what you're saying.
Why would I care?
I don't understand.
Why do you care? Why do you care if I said that reflects poorly on you? What do you care about my opinion? Why would you care what I think about that? Well, I'm just telling you. If somebody tells you, hold on, if you accept the premise that what I'm saying to you is true, and then you say, well, it's not going to make me stop being friends with Troy King, or it's not going to stop me from how I think about Troy King. I'm sorry. It doesn't really matter, but it doesn't reflect well on you. Do you think it reflects well on you? No, it reflects poorly on you. That's just a simple fact. If someone lies to you and then you say, well, it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to stop being friends with him. That's fine, but it still reflects poorly on you. If you don't like that, I'm sorry, but that's the truth.
No, like your opinion, $2 will buy me a paper.
Okay, sure.
So yeah, I get that, but I don't understand why you're saying now I have no integrity or.
I'd say you have no integrity. I said that shows a lack of integrity. It does. If someone says to you, I didn't ask you, what do you think of Troy King? You offered that up. You said it's not going to change the way I think about Troy King. I don't care what you think about Troy King.
I'm supposed to come out there and say, Troy, I have to quit being friends with you now.
No, I don't care about it, or nor do I think you should do that. I just wouldn't go around saying, oh, this guy who lied to me directly, yeah, that doesn't change my opinion of it. Value yourself a little more than that. That if someone lies to you, that it should affect your opinion. You can still be friends with them. You can still trust them. But to say that it doesn't affect your opinion of them, that it just makes you sound like a sap. And that's fine if that's how you want to feel. But that's how it comes across.
I don't go on sap at all. There's always two sides to every story, and somewhere in the middle there's the truth.
There aren't. This is the fact of the matter. There are not two sides to this story. There's a guy who's told you hold on. There's a guy who's told you exactly what happened, who has written about it, talked about it, and been all about this story since it happened to him. There's another guy who says, well, gee golly, I just don't remember. And so no, there are not two sides to every story. There is one side to the story, and there is the correct side to the story. This is not a he said, she said, they said, them said. That's not what this is. This happened. This was wrong. He knows it. I know it. And now you know it. So you can decide whether or not you want to say, well, it doesn't matter. And that's cool. You can say that. But I'm going to say, hey, that reflects poorly on you. Why? Okay. Because it reflects poorly on you.
Okay. Okay. So if I call Mo Brooks right now, he's going to back up this story 100%.
Absolutely.
And he'll tell me the exact same thing that you tell me.
Absolutely.
And you have paperwork from the grand jury.
What paperwork am I have? A notice to appear? Or are you debating whether or not I appear? No, I don't have the paperwork to appear. Actually, I think I do have I actually probably do have it. Where I actually do have paperwork that shows that I was ordered to appear at the grand jury. I'll ask this question. Now you're questioning it? You're questioning it solely because I said that still saying, oh, it doesn't change the way I think about Troy King affects poorly on your character. So now you're going to attack the story more. If you got questions about it, let's hear them. Lay them
I'm
out.
not attacking the story. I'm not attacking the story at all. I'm asking you the follow-up questions on it. You have
What's the follow-up question? Do you have the paperwork? Yes.
Yeah.
Next.
You have something that says, hey, you've been, the grand jury's not decided to indict on this.
Yep.
How long did it take the grand jury to decide they're not going to file charges on you?
45 minutes to an hour.
And how long did the hearing last?
45 minutes to an hour.
So you was the only person to testify in this.
I mean, I was only when I left. I mean, who else was going to testify? I don't know. I don't know what happened after I left. They don't sit you there and let the whole thing play out. You go in, and most people don't even appear before a grand jury. Grand juries meet without people even knowing all the time.
Right. So you didn't.
That's why you get target letters and things like this. That was done to intimidate. It was an intimidation technique. They said, oh, yeah, come in here. So they could offer me the deal. And so I would take it. It was an intimidation technique that didn't work. And again, your words, that doesn't reflect poorly on Troy King to me. Well, it should.
That's not what I said.
Doesn't change the way I think about Troy King. Well, it should. So
my loyalty to somebody, and for the sake of argument, somebody does something, if this is true, and I should totally give up my loyalties to Troy King.
About the 15th time you've asked that question in 3 different ways. Yeah. So let me answer it again. Let me answer it again. I'll answer it.
You can say it reflects poorly on me.
No,
tell me how it
you can
poorly.
Still be friends with Troy King. You can still trust Troy King. You can still like Troy King. All those things can be true. But it should make you think less of it. Okay? At the end of the day, it should make you think less. And look, our friendships are built up over lifetimes, or whatever you're doing, and how long you've known them, or whatever. Sure. Your friendship's built over that. And there are things that build trust, and there are things that take away trust. And the only thing I quibble with is your willingness to say, well, that's not going to impact the way I think of him. Well, okay, then that reflects poorly on you. And there's no other way to look at it. You may not like that. You shouldn't like that. You should not like that at all. You should think, wow, I don't really want to be perceived that way. But that is the way you're perceived to me. And why would you care what I think? I don't know. But I'm going to say it anyway.
No, I don't think, I don't care. But I think that I should have the right to defend myself, that, I'm not a dishonest person. I'm not somebody who doesn't have integrity, or somebody who lacks integrity. I mean, I'm always going to try to do the right thing.
What would somebody watching this think?
Well, I don't know. I guess that's what the viewers are going to have to see.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now what they're going to think. They're going to think you listened to an entire story about how an attorney general for the state of Alabama attempted to put somebody in jail for a joke, tried to destroy his life and his career. And then at the end, you look that person in the eye and you said, well, it's not going to impact the way I think about Troy King.
Okay. So it should impact the way I feel about Troy King.
Doesn't have to, but if it doesn't, I'll repeat myself again. That reflects poorly on you.
And you think that's what the viewers are going to take from this?
Both of them? Probably.
So let me ask you, 45 minutes on the stand. I mean, that's a lot of questions for this, wasn't it?
It's not a lot of questions because it takes time for them to ask the questions and answer the questions. And there's a conversation that takes place. It's not answer this 3-word question, answer this, answer this, answer this. Grand jury, it's like almost like an open forum where you're sitting around and people are asking you questions. Put 10 more people in this conversation, and that's what it is. And
the jury, grand jury, they can ask questions too, right?
Yep. And they did. Did you think that this would make people feel stupid? They said things like, I listened to your show and I thought it was very funny. I like your show. I'm like, what is happening? Why are we having this conversation? What is going on here? So those are all things that happened in there. Not because it makes any damn sense, but because the reality of the situation was they knew they did not want to pursue this any further, so they let them talk themselves out of it. If they wanted an indictment, they would have said, here are the 4 counts. Boom, 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 boom. You did this, didn't you? You told the investigator you did this, didn't you? Because the answer would have been yes, because I did do it. I did all the things that they said I did. 0 of them were criminal. That's the point here.
When you got the summons coming to grand jury, or when you got this notification, was you scared?
Of course. I'm 29 years old at the time, 30 years old at the time, maybe. I'm 3 years into a job, and the attorney general of the state's trying to destroy my life. Yeah, I was scared. No question about it. Which is why I'm still pissed about it a good 15 years later.
Was you still scared going into the day of the hearing?
Yes, I was scared until the moment I got the letter or the call that I was clear. And then at that point, it was open season because I could do whatever I wanted because there's no way to revisit it.
When Congressman Brooks told you, and I think I read that something that he said, we're not taking this because they'll do a victory lap around the state or something. Was he a calming effect for you during that time?
Sure. Of course.
If it hadn't been for that, for him, do you think you would have taken the deal? Another lawyer would have?
Probably.
I think it would have been what, a misdemeanor, no fine, no jail time?
Misdemeanor, no fine, and nothing. Anything that they would have come up with, even probation, I think would have been suspended. That was the deal they offered. They just wanted me to say I'm guilty of one of these things. So they could then say, oh, yeah, we got this guy to plead guilty to this related to this.
Congressman Brooks must have had, some guts to roll the dice on a situation like that. Because
he knows the law. There's a First Amendment issue at play. But just because there's a First Amendment issue at play doesn't mean that a media company is going to back you.
Right.
You're not immune from consequences of the stupid thing I did, the hilarious thing I did that was also kind of stupid. There's still consequences to those things. And that's what Troy King was banking on. That's what he was banking on. He was banking not on putting me in jail or any of that. He was banking on ruining my life. That's what he was banking on. And if you can say, well, that doesn't make me think poorly of Troy King.
What I'm saying is Troy King is still my friend.
Good for you. Watch your back. That's the moral of the story. Good for you. Watch your back.
Let's watch my back. That brings up a question I would like to ask you.
Last question, because I got things to do.
Okay, yeah, I know, man. And hey, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you doing this. When I write stuff, somebody told me I need to get an LLC so I didn't get sued. How far can you take this line? With when you're dealing with calling Twinkle Kavanaugh a dimwit star. I mean, am I going to get sued over something like that?
No, she's a public figure. I mean, unless you lie about her, you got nothing to worry about. And you have to knowingly lie with intentionality. Now, there will be people like, I don't know, let's pick one out of thin air. Got just some asshole, some terrible person, Troy King, who might try to take something you've said and try to destroy you with it. But they would be rolling the dice to do that. New York versus Sullivan. Go read it. It's almost impossible for a public figure to be defamed unless it's done intentionally. Like you're intentionally lying about them with malice and forethought. You're trying to harm that person. Accidentally or anything like that, nothing. But and plus the other thing is they would have to come to you and say, hey, take this back. And you would say, well, why should I? And you say, well, because it's not true. And then you go back and you say, I made a mistake. You know how many times I've had to do that? 0.
Dale Jackson, thank you for the back and forth. I enjoyed the exchange there. Thanks for coming on, man. And I hope the 3 people that watch it will take something from it.
If I make $1 for every one of these people that watch, we'll have $3. So congratulations. All right. Let me know when it posts.
All right, buddy. I'll send you a link to it.